Welcome back to Bargirl Baddies. Today's story comes from a guy we'll call Marcus, 32 years old, from Manchester. He worked in finance, made good money, lived the corporate grind for a decade, but by early 2023 he was burned out, lonely after a rough breakup, and scrolling through YouTube videos of expats living in Thailand like kings on a fraction of what they'd spend back home. Marcus thought he'd found the answer to everything that was wrong with his life. He thought he'd cracked the code. What he actually found was a masterclass in how quickly $300,000 can vanish when you confuse attention with affection and loneliness with love. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. And if you've ever felt like you were being played or used for your wallet, hit that like button and subscribe because you're definitely not alone. Marcus will take it from here. I'll be honest with you, mate. Back in Manchester, I had everything on paper. Good job at an investment firm, nice flat in the northern quarter, mates I'd go to the pub with on weekends. But something was missing. My girlfriend of 4 years left me in January 2023, said I was emotionally unavailable, always working, never present. She wasn't wrong. After she moved out, the flat felt like a tomb. I'd come home to silence, microwave some pasta, stare at my laptop until midnight, running numbers that didn't matter. The numbers were always for someone else's wealth, someone else's portfolio, someone else's future. I was 32 years old, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something just because it made me happy. The breakup wasn't dramatic. Sarah just packed her things over a weekend while I was at the office catching up on quarterly reports. She left a note on the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker. Said she loved me but couldn't compete with my work anymore. Said she felt like a flatmate, not a partner. Said she hoped I'd figure out what I really wanted before it was too late. I read that note maybe 50 times over the next few weeks, each time thinking I should feel something more than I did. But mostly, I just felt tired. One night in late February, couldn't sleep. I fell down a rabbit hole on YouTube, videos of middle-aged blokes living in Pattaya, Bangkok, Chiang Mai. They'd show their condos with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, their motorbikes parked in tropical courtyards, their nights out where a beer cost less than £1 and everyone knew their name. The women in these videos were always laughing, always smiling, always seemed genuinely happy to be there. And the comments were all the same. Best decision I ever made. Wish I'd done this 10 years ago. The West is finished, mate. Western women don't appreciate good men anymore. Out here, your money goes 10 times further and people actually respect you. I watched hours of it. One video led to another. Expat forums, Reddit threads, Facebook groups with names like Thailand Living and Pattaya Expats and Bangkok Digital Nomads. The weather was always warm, the food was incredible and cheap. The cost of living was a fraction of the UK. You could rent a nice condo for £300 a month. You could eat out every meal for less than what you'd spend on groceries back home. And everywhere you went, people smiled. That's what got me, I think. The smiling. In Manchester, on the tram, in the office, at Tesco, everyone looked miserable. Grey skies, grey faces, grey lives. By March, I'd made up my mind. I had about £320,000 saved up. Mix of inheritance from my dad who passed in 2021, bonuses from good years at the firm, and just being careful with money my whole adult life. I'd never been one for flashy cars or designer clothes. I'd always been saving for something, though I'd never quite worked out what. A house, maybe. A wedding that never happened. A future that felt increasingly like it was never going to arrive. I thought, what's the point of saving all this if I'm miserable? What's the point of being responsible if responsibility just means being alone in a flat that's too quiet, working a job that's slowly grinding me into dust? I quit my job on a Monday. My boss tried to talk me out of it. Said I was having a moment, that everyone feels burnt out, that I should take a sabbatical instead. But I'd already made up my mind. I gave notice on my flat. Sold most of my furniture on Facebook Marketplace. Told my mum I was moving to Thailand. She cried. Said I was running away from my problems. That problems follow you wherever you go. My mates thought I'd lost the plot. One of them, Danny, said I was going through a midlife crisis 10 years early. He said Thailand was full of scammers and I'd be broke in 6 months. I laughed it off. Told him I'd done my research. Told him I wasn't some naive kid, I was a financial analyst for God's sake. I knew how to manage money. I booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok for mid-April. Thai Airways. Economy. Because even though I had money, I still had that northern working class guilt about spending too much on a flight. The night before I left, I sat in my empty flat. Everything I owned either sold or packed into 2 suitcases and a backpack, and I felt alive for the first time in years. Scared, sure, but alive. Like I was finally doing something just for me. I landed in Bangkok on a Tuesday afternoon. The heat hit me like a wall when I stepped outside Suvarnabhumi airport. Thick, wet heat that made my shirt stick to my back within seconds. But I loved it. I took a taxi to a short-term rental I'd booked in Sukhumvit near Nana. The driver didn't speak much English, but he smiled a lot and had the radio playing Thai pop music that sounded upbeat even though I couldn't understand a word. We drove through the city and I pressed my face to the window like a kid. The traffic was mental. Motorbikes weaving between cars, families of 4 on a single scooter, street vendors selling food from carts on the side of the highway. Everything was colour and movement and noise. My building was down a small soi off Sukhumvit Road. Narrow street, no pavement really, just enough room for cars to squeeze past each other. There was a 7-Eleven on the corner, a massage shop with pink neon lights, a hole-in-the-wall restaurant with plastic stools out front. I dragged my suitcases up 3 flights of stairs because the lift was broken, unlocked the door to my studio, and stood there sweating and grinning like an idiot. It was small. Smaller than my flat back home, but it had a bed, a little kitchen area, a bathroom, and a window that looked out onto the soi. I could hear everything. Motorbikes revving, people talking in Thai, music from somewhere, the hum of air conditioning units. It was perfect. I dropped my bags and walked back down to the 7-Eleven. Bought a big bottle of Leo beer and a bag of prawn crackers. The girl at the counter smiled at me, said something in Thai I didn't understand, and I smiled back. The beer cost 30 baht. I did the math in my head. Less than £1. I sat on the curb outside my building, drank that Leo in the warm evening air, and thought, bloody hell, I've actually done it. I've actually changed my life. The first 2 weeks were a blur. I explored the city like a tourist, which I was, but I wanted to be more than that. I wanted to belong. I ate pad thai from street carts, took the BTS everywhere, visited temples where the smell of incense mixed with the Bangkok heat. I walked through Chatterchak Market on a Saturday and got lost for hours among the stalls selling everything from antique typewriters to live chickens. I went to rooftop bars in Silam and watched the sunset over the city, the sky turning orange and pink and purple while the buildings below started to light up. But I was alone. I'd smile at people, try to chat with street vendors or other foreigners in cafes, but nothing stuck. I was just another Farang drifting through. At night, I'd go back to my studio and lie in bed listening to the sounds of the Swa and feel that familiar loneliness creeping back in. Different country, same empty feeling. That's when I started going to the bars around Swa Cowboy and Nana Plaza. Just to watch, I told myself. Just to see what the fuss was about. I'd read about them, of course, seen them in the YouTube videos. I knew what they were. But I was curious, and I was lonely, and the bars were full of people, full of light and music and laughter, and that felt better than sitting alone in my studio. I met Mint on my 3rd visit to a bar called Sugar. It was a small place, maybe a dozen girls, loud music, coloured lights, the usual setup. I was sitting at the bar nursing a singer when she came over. She was 26, from Isan, not the tallest or the most glamorous girl working there, but there was something about her smile. It was genuine, or at least it felt genuine. She had this laugh that made everyone around her laugh too, this warmth that seemed to fill whatever space she was in. She sat next to me, close enough that our knees touched, and asked where I was from. I told her Manchester. She said she loved Manchester United. I told her I was actually a City fan, and she pretended to be offended. We laughed. She asked how long I was staying. When I said I'd moved here, her eyes lit up. She said she loved Farangs who actually wanted to live in Thailand, not just visit for 2 weeks and leave. She said most of the men who came to the bar were tourists, just passing through, but she could tell I was different. God, I wanted to believe that. We talked for hours. I bought her drinks. Lady drinks, they called them, 70 baht each, and she'd down them like water and order another. I didn't care. The conversation felt real. She told me about her life, about growing up in a village in Isan, about her daughter who lived with her parents back home, about her ex-boyfriend who got her pregnant and then disappeared. She showed me photos of her daughter on her phone. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, with Mint's smile. She said she sent money home every month to support her family, that working at Sugar wasn't what she wanted to do forever, but it paid better than anything else she could get without a degree. I told her about my life, about the breakup, the job I'd quit, the inheritance I was living off. I probably shared too much. But she listened, really listened, looked me in the eyes, nodded in the right places, touched my arm when I said something that seemed to move her. Around midnight, I paid her bar fine, 1,000 baht to the mama-san, so Mint could leave with me. We went for food at a late-night place near my condo. Cow tom, rice soup, nothing fancy. We sat on plastic stools and ate and talked more. Nothing happened that night. She said she was tired, that she just wanted to spend time with me, get to know me. I walked her to the main road and put her in a taxi. She kissed me on the cheek and said she'd like to see me again. I went back to my studio floating. I'd been in Thailand 3 weeks and I'd finally connected with someone. I saw Mint 3-4 times a week after that. I'd go to Sugar, pay her bar fine, and we'd leave together. Sometimes we'd go for dinner. Sometimes we'd walk around the night markets in Talad Rot Phai, looking at vintage clothes and second-hand cameras. Sometimes we'd just go back to my place and watch movies on my laptop. Her head on my shoulder, her hand in mine. She started staying over. I wasn't stupid. I knew what the arrangement was supposed to be. I knew I was paying for her time, but it felt different with her. She'd text me good morning, send me photos of what she was eating for lunch, ask how my day was going. She'd call me on her days off just to chat. It felt like a relationship. She introduced me to her friends, other girls who worked at Sugar or nearby bars. Nam was 24, bubbly, always talking about how she wanted to open a salon one day. Ploy was 28, quieter, said she was studying English at night school so she could get a better job. And then there was Yuki. Yuki was different. She wasn't Thai, she was Japanese, 30 years old, and she didn't work in the bars. She had some kind of job, marketing or something. But she hung out with the bar girls because she liked the scene, liked the energy. She was smart, spoke perfect English, and treated me like an equal, not a customer. They all treated me like I was special, like I was part of their crew. We'd go out together, big groups of us, bar hopping down Sukhumvit or hitting up clubs in Thonglor. I'd pay for most things because I could, and because it felt good to be generous, to be the guy who took care of everyone. They'd thank me, call me kind, call me their friend. I felt like I'd found my people. By June, I'd rented a 2-bedroom condo in Thong Lo. Nicer area, more expensive, but I could afford it. 30,000 baht a month, about 700 quid. It had a pool, a gym, a nice view. I was living the dream I'd watched on YouTube. I had a routine. Gym in the morning, lunch at a cafe where they knew my order, afternoon at a co-working space, pretending I was working on some online business idea I never actually started, then evenings with Mint and her crew. We'd go to rooftop bars, eat at restaurants with English menus and prices that would have seemed expensive back home but felt cheap compared to London. I was spending, sure, but it felt worth it. I was happy. I wasn't lonely anymore. Mint started staying at my place almost every night. She kept a toothbrush in my bathroom, some clothes in my wardrobe. She'd cook for me sometimes, fried rice with too much fish sauce, or samtam that made my eyes water. I'd eat it and tell her it was great and she'd laugh and say I was lying. We'd fall asleep watching Netflix, her curled up against me, and I'd think, this is it. This is what I left Manchester for. She started talking about her future, how she wanted to quit the bar, how she couldn't do it forever, how she needed a way out. I asked what she wanted to do instead. She said maybe open a shop, clothing or beauty products, something like that. She just needed capital to get started. I didn't offer anything then, but I thought about it. I thought about how good it would feel to help her build something real, to be the person who changed her life the way moving to Thailand had changed mine. One night in July, we were lying in bed, the air conditioning humming, and she told me her daughter was sick. Nothing serious, she said, but she needed to see a doctor in Bangkok, not just the village clinic. The bill would be 20,000 baht. About 400 quid. She said her family didn't have it, that she'd been trying to save, but the rent was due and she'd had to send money home already that month. She wasn't asking, not directly, but the implication hung in the air between us. I didn't hesitate. I transferred her the money right there on my phone. She cried. Actually cried. hugged me, and said I was the kindest man she'd ever met, that most men just wanted one thing, but I was different. I actually cared. A week later, she showed me photos of her daughter at a hospital in Bangkok, sitting in a waiting room with Mint's mum. I felt good. I felt like I'd done something that mattered. Yuki started asking me for advice about investing around the same time. We were at a bar in Ekamai, just the two of us, and she said she had some money saved and wanted to grow it. She was smart about it too, didn't just come out and ask for anything. She said she'd been reading about index funds and wanted my opinion. I told her about the basics, boring stuff really, compound interest and diversification. She listened intently, asked good questions, nodded in all the right places. Then she said she was thinking about something more hands-on, maybe property. She said the rental market in Thailand was strong, especially in tourist areas, and she'd been looking at small guest houses up north. I told her Thai property law was tricky for foreigners, that you couldn't own land outright, only the building, and even then there were complications. She said that's why she was perfect for this. Being Japanese, she could navigate it easier than a Westerner, and she was thinking about buying a small place in Chiang Mai, maybe 3 or 4 rooms, doing it up nice and renting it out to tourists. She showed me listings on her phone, little guest houses near the old city, some needing work, some ready to go. She said she was thinking about putting down 1 million baht, about £20,000, and asked if I'd be interested in going halves. As a silent partner, she'd handle everything, the purchase, the renovation, the management, and we'd split the profit 60-40 in her favour since she'd be doing all the work. I said I'd think about it, and I did think about it. It sounded legitimate. Yuki wasn't like the other girls. She had a real job, spoke 3 languages, seemed financially savvy. This wasn't a handout, it was an investment. A proper investment with potential returns. I told myself I'd look into it properly before committing. Ploy needed help with her English tuition around the same time, 5,000 baht a month. She showed me the brochure for the school, glossy photos of classrooms and smiling students. She said she was serious about improving her English so she could get out of bar work, maybe get a job at a hotel or an office. She said the course was 6 months, and after that she'd be fluent enough to pass the tests for better positions. She wasn't asking me to pay for it, not directly, but she mentioned it enough times that I understood what she needed. I paid for the first 3 months up front. 15,000 baht, about 300 quid. It felt good to invest in someone's future. Nam's salon dream was becoming more concrete too. She'd talk about it constantly when we were out. She'd point at empty shop spaces and say that would be perfect. Or she'd show me photos on Instagram of salons in Bangkok with modern interiors and say that's the vibe she wanted. She never directly asked me for money, but the hints were always there, floating in the conversation like smoke. She'd say things like, I just need about 50,000 baht to get started. Or, if I could just get the deposit together, I could make this happen. I'd nod and say that sounded great, and she'd smile at me with those hopeful eyes. By August, I'd spent maybe £40,000. I'd been in Thailand 4 months. The money had gone on rent, going out, helping the girls, flying Mint's family down to Bangkok for a weekend so I could meet them properly. Her mum and dad and daughter stayed in a hotel near my condo, and I took them all to dinner at a seafood place by the river. The bill was 8,000 baht, and I paid it without blinking. Mint's mum hugged me and said something in Thai that Mint translated as, she says you're a good man and she's happy I found you. Her daughter was shy around me at first, but by the end of the night she was sitting on my lap playing games on my phone. I felt like part of a family. I'd also bought a new iPhone when mine got nicked at a club in RCA. 1,800 quid for the latest model because I figured I might as well. I was living here now, I needed a good phone. I'd bought Mint a gold bracelet for her birthday, 10,000 baht, because she'd mentioned once that her ex never bought her jewellery. I'd lent Nam 20,000 baht when her motorbike broke down, which she promised to pay back, but never did. I'd covered bar fines and drinks and dinners and taxis for months. But when I checked my bank balance, I still saw £280,000 sitting there. I wasn't worried. This was what the money was for. To live, to help people, to build a life. Then Mint told me she was ready to quit the bar. We were at my condo, early September, and she said she couldn't do it anymore. Said she was tired of drunk men grabbing her, tired of the late nights, tired of feeling like she was wasting her life. She said she'd been thinking about the shop idea seriously and she'd found a place. a little clothing boutique near Ari. The landlord wanted 15,000 baht a month rent, which was steep, but the location was good. Lots of foot traffic, young crowd with money to spend. She showed me the space on a video call with the landlord. It was tiny, maybe 20 square meters, but it had big windows and good lighting, and I could see it working. She said she needed 200,000 baht up front, 60,000 for 3 months deposit and first month rent, and the rest for initial stock, racks, a till system, some basic renovations to make it look nice. She had a business plan written in broken English on her phone, notes about suppliers, about what kind of clothes she'd sell, Korean fashion and Japanese streetwear, things that were trendy with Thai university students. She'd even worked out projected monthly revenue, though the numbers seemed optimistic. She looked at me with those eyes, the same eyes that had made me feel seen that first night at Sugar, and she said, "You believe in me, don't you?" What was I supposed to say? Here was this woman who'd become the centre of my life in Thailand, who texted me every morning, who cooked me dinner, even though she was terrible at it, who introduced me to her family, who cried in my arms when she was stressed about money. Here was her chance to get out of the bar, to build something real, and I had the money to make it happen. I'd spent my whole life in finance helping rich people get richer. For once, I could actually help someone who needed it. I wired her the money the next day, 200,000 baht, just under £5,000. She cried when I showed her the transfer confirmation. She quit Sugar that week, threw a little party at the bar on her last night. All her friends came, other girls from nearby bars, even some of the customers who'd known her for years. Everyone was happy for her. I felt like a hero. Like I'd actually done something good with my money, instead of just letting it sit in an account gathering interest for a future that never seemed to arrive. The shop opened in late September. Mint called it Minty Fresh Fashion. I thought the name was a bit naff, bit on the nose, but she loved it, so I kept my mouth shut. She had a little opening party, nothing fancy, just some snacks and drinks and her friends coming by to show support. I was there all day helping her arrange the clothes on the racks, hanging up the sign, taking photos for her Instagram. She posted everything, tagged me in it all, called me her partner and her supporter, and the man who believed in her dream. The likes rolled in. Her friends commented with hearts and congratulations. I felt proud. The first week I'd stop by every day after the gym. She'd rearranged the clothes on the racks about a dozen times, trying to figure out the best layout. A few people came in, mostly her friends from the bars, girls who'd buy a shirt or a dress to support her. Some random walk-ins, university students who'd browse and sometimes buy something small. Mint was glowing. She'd talk about her plans to expand, maybe get a second location in a year, maybe start an online store. I'd listen and nod and tell her it was all possible. But by October, the glow started fading. She'd complain that foot traffic was lower than she'd expected. The area was busy, but people weren't coming into the shop. They'd walk past, maybe glance in the window, but they wouldn't stop. She said she needed to spend more on marketing, on Instagram ads, maybe hire someone who actually knew how to run social media properly. Another 10,000 baht here, 20,000 there. I covered it, told her it was an investment, that all businesses need capital in the early stages. She'd smile and thank me, but the smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. She stopped posting photos of the shop as frequently. When I'd visit, she'd be on her phone, scrolling through TikTok or chatting online, not rearranging clothes or helping customers. The few times there were people in the shop, she'd barely engage with them. I asked if everything was okay. She said she was just tired. Said running a business was harder than she thought. I suggested she hire help, maybe one of her friends who needed work. She said she couldn't afford it yet. Yuki brought up the Chiang Mai property thing again in early November. We met for coffee in Phong Lo, and she had documents with her, printouts of the guest house, photos of the rooms, a breakdown of costs. The place needed more work than she'd initially thought. The total cost was now 2.2 million baht, about £55,000. She said she'd cover her half, but asked if I was still interested. She said the location was perfect, right near the old city, and once it was renovated, it could pull in 60,000 baht a month easy during high season. I should have said no. I should have taken the documents to a lawyer, done proper due diligence, actually gone to Chiang Mai to see the place myself. But I was in deep already. I'd given Mint thousands. I was paying Ploy's school fees. I'd helped Nam with her motorbike. What was another 25 grand in what seemed like a legitimate investment? Yuki wasn't some bar girl. She was educated, professional. She showed me contracts, official-looking documents with stamps and signatures. I didn't read them properly, I just trusted her. I wired her the money that week. She showed me more photos after the purchase supposedly went through. Photos of the guest house with scaffolding up, workers doing renovations. She said it would take 3 months to complete, and then we'd start seeing returns. I believed her. Ploy's English school fees went up in November. She said she'd been doing so well, they'd recommended she enroll in the advanced course, which was 8,000 baht a month instead of 5. She showed me a certificate from the first course, a piece of paper with her name on it and some official-looking stamps. I paid the 3 more months of the advanced course, 24,000 baht. I was starting to feel the drain, but I told myself it was fine. I still had over 200,000 pounds in the bank. I was fine. Nam finally asked directly for help with the salon in December. We were at a bar in Siam, and she'd had a few drinks, and she just came out with it. Said she'd found the perfect location. Said she had a friend who could get her wholesale pricing on equipment. Said she just needed 50,000 baht for a deposit and she could make it work. She promised to pay me back in 6 months once the salon was profitable. She held my hand across the table and said I was the only person she could ask, the only person who'd ever believed in her. I sent her the money the next day. 50,000 baht. About £1,000. I didn't even ask to see the location or meet the friend with the equipment connections. I just sent it. By mid-December, I'd burned through about £120,000 in 8 months. The math was starting to make me nervous. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and check my banking app, watching the number that used to be £320,000 slowly shrinking. I started saying no to some things. When Mint asked for money to visit her family for a week, I hesitated. She noticed. She got quiet. Distant. She started spending more time at the shop, or at least that's what she said. She'd come to my condo less frequently. When she did come over, she seemed distracted, always on her phone, always tired. Then Christmas came. I spent it alone. Mint said she had to be with her daughter, that it was important for her family. Yuki went back to Japan to visit her parents. Poi and Nam had family obligations. I sat in my Thonglo condo on Christmas Day, ordered KFC because everything else was closed, and watched It's a Wonderful Life on my laptop. I'd been in Thailand 8 months, and I'd never felt more alone. The condo that had felt like a symbol of my new life now felt like an expensive prison. I could hear families in other units, people laughing and talking, Christmas music playing somewhere. I ate my chicken and thought about Manchester, about my mum's house where there'd be a tree and terrible crackers, and my uncle doing his same bad jokes he did every year. I thought about calling her, but I couldn't face it. Couldn't face admitting that maybe this whole thing had been a mistake. In January, Mint stopped answering my calls. I'd ring her, and it would go to voicemail. I'd message her online, and the messages would show as read, but no response would come. I went to the shop. It was closed, not just closed for the day, but properly closed. The sign was gone. The windows were empty. The racks were gone. I stood outside staring through the glass like an idiot while people walked past giving me strange looks. I found a landlord, an older Thai man who ran a restaurant 2 doors down. He said Mint had paid through the end of December, but hadn't renewed the lease. He said she'd cleared out everything the day after Christmas. He asked if I was her husband. I said no. He looked at me with something like pity and went back to his restaurant. I tried calling her again, straight to voicemail now, not even ringing. I messaged her friends. Nam said she hadn't seen her. Ploy said the same. I asked if they had her family's contact information, if they knew where in Isan she was from. They both said no. I went back to Sugar, the bar where I'd met her. The Mama-san said Mint hadn't been around, that she'd left months ago, and that was that. She offered me a drink, said there were plenty of other girls. I left. I confronted Yuki about the Chiang Mai property, sent her a long message saying I wanted to see updated photos, wanted copies of all the documents in English, wanted to arrange a trip up there to see it myself. She replied, saying everything was fine, just paperwork delays. These things take time in Thailand. I said I wanted specifics. She stopped replying. I called her. She answered once, said she was busy, said she'd call me back. She never did. I went to the building where she'd said she worked. The security guard said no one by that name worked there. He checked the directory. No Yuki Ploy's English school didn't exist. I'd finally gotten suspicious enough to actually look it up properly, The address she'd given me was a 7-Eleven on Sukhumvit Soy 22. I went there. It was just a 7-Eleven. I asked the staff if there was a language school nearby. They looked at me like I was insane. I checked the name of the school online. Nothing. No website, no Facebook page, no reviews. The certificate she'd shown me was fake. Probably printed at a copy shop the 20 baht Nam salon never opened. I finally went to the location she'd shown me photos of months ago. It was a phone repair shop. Had been for years, according to the owner, a guy in his 50s who barely spoke English. I showed him a photo of Nam on my phone. He shook his head. Didn't know her. I sat in my condo and did the math properly for the first time. Really looked at my bank statements, added up every transfer, every withdrawal. $300,000 gone. Well, not all of it. Some of it I'd spent legitimately, on rent, on food, on actually living. But most of it went to women I thought were my friends, my girlfriend, my community. Women who saw a lonely, desperate man with money and took everything he'd give until there was nothing left to take. I didn't go to the police. What was I going to report? I willingly sent money to people. I didn't have contracts for most of it. Even the Yuki property thing, I'd signed documents I hadn't read, documents that were probably completely fake or completely legal but totally screwed me over in ways I didn't understand. I couldn't prove anything. And more than that, I was ashamed. I felt like the stupidest man alive. All those YouTube videos I'd watched, all those warnings in the comments from other men saying don't trust anyone, don't give money to bar girls, don't think you're special. I'd read them all and thought, but I'm different, I'm smarter than those guys. I work in finance. I can tell when someone's being genuine. Turns out I couldn't tell at all. By March 2024, I was running out of money. I had maybe £30,000 left. I moved to a cheaper studio in Onnut, a far cry from the Thonglor condo. 10,000 baht a month, grimy building, no pool, no gym, traffic noise all night. I started eating street food for every meal, 30 baht pad krapao, 20 baht water instead of buying beer. I stopped going out. I'd spend my days applying for remote jobs back in the UK, getting rejected over and over because I'd been out of the market for a year and couldn't explain the gap without sounding like a complete idiot. I thought about going home, but I couldn't face it. Couldn't face my mums. I told you so. My mates asking what happened to all that money, admitting that I'd pissed away my inheritance and my life savings chasing a fantasy. So I stayed in that depressing studio in Onnut and watched my bank balance tick down week by week. I saw Mint one more time. It was April. I was walking through Siam Paragon because it was air-conditioned and free and I had nowhere else to be, and there she was, shopping at one of the expensive stores on the ground floor. She was with some older white guy, 60 at least, grey hair, polo shirt, the kind of guy who looks exactly like what he is. She was holding his hand, laughing at something he'd said, carrying shopping bags from stores I could no longer afford to walk into. Our eyes met across the atrium. Just for a second, I saw recognition flash across her face. Then she looked away and kept walking like I was a stranger. The old guy didn't even notice. They disappeared into another shop, and I stood there in the middle of Siam Paragon, people flowing around me like water around a stone, and I realized with perfect clarity, I was never special. I was never different. I was just another walking ATM. I finally left Thailand in June 2024, 14 months after I'd arrived with dreams and £300,000 and a desperate need to feel like my life meant something. I left with about £10,000 to my name, a suitcase full of clothes that reeked of mildew from the Onnut studio and a bitterness in my chest that felt like it might never leave. I'm back in Manchester now, living with my mum in the same bedroom I had as a teenager. She didn't say I told you so. She just hugged me at the airport and helped me carry my bag to the car. I'm working a contract job through an agency, financial analysis for a firm that pays half what I used to make. I'm rebuilding, slowly, painfully, but I'm doing it. The money's not even the worst part, if 1,000 honest. Money you can earn back eventually. It's the trust. I don't trust my instincts anymore. I don't trust when people are kind to me. When the woman at the coffee shop near my mum's house smiles and remembers my order, I wonder what she wants. When a colleague asks how I'm doing, I assume they're after something. I'm suspicious of everything and everyone, and I hate it. I hate what this has done to me. Looking back, I can see every single red flag I ignored. The way Mint never wanted to meet during the day at first, always at the bar where I'd have to pay her out. The way Yuki's documents had spelling errors and weird formatting. The way none of them ever actually invited me to real family events, just told me about family stuff they were doing without me. The way they all had emergencies that needed cash, never help with time or effort, always money. The way the affection dried up the moment I started hesitating to pay. I ignored it all because I was so desperate not to be lonely. That's the truth of it. I'd rather be used than be alone. I'd rather pay for companionship and pretend it was real than face the silence of my own company. And there are people in this world who can smell that desperation like sharks smell blood in water. They're very, very good at what they do. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I don't deserve sympathy. I made every single one of these choices. I ignored warnings. I threw money at problems that money couldn't fix. I confused transactions with relationships and paid the price. But if you're thinking about doing what I did, if you're sitting in some flat in some grey city thinking Thailand is the answer, just know this. There are professional level operators over there who've been doing this for years. They know exactly what to say, exactly how to make you feel special, exactly when to ask and how much to ask for. And they will take everything you'll give them and then they'll move on to the next guy without a second thought. I was that next guy. And when my money ran out, I became nobody. Marcus's story is a hard one, but it's far from unique. Every week we hear from guys who thought they'd found something real in Thailand, only to discover they'd found a business transaction dressed up as friendship or love. The truth is, Marcus wasn't scammed in the traditional sense. No one held a gun to his head. No one stole his bank details. But he was exploited, his loneliness, his need to feel valued, his money, all of it. And the people who did it were professionals. Here's the thing we need to understand. Not every Thai woman is a scammer. Not every freelancer is running a game. But in areas where tourism and nightlife intersect with poverty and opportunity, there's an entire ecosystem built around separating lonely foreign men from their money. And it works because it preys on something real, the human need for connection. Marcus made mistakes. He ignored red flags the size of billboards. He confused transactions with relationships. He didn't do basic due diligence. He let his emotions override his intelligence. But he was also a man in pain, looking for meaning, looking for connection. And he walked into an environment specifically designed to exploit exactly that vulnerability. The girls he met weren't evil. They were just doing what they'd learned to do, to survive, to send money home, to get ahead in a system that offers them very few other options. It doesn't make what they did right, but it makes it understandable. If you're watching this and thinking it could never happen to you, ask yourself, have you ever made a decision based on loneliness? Have you ever ignored your gut because you wanted something to be true so badly? Have you ever spent money to feel valued? We all have. Marcus just paid a much higher price for it than most of us ever will. If you've got a story like Marcus's, or if you've seen this happen to someone you know, drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if this hit home, if you recognize yourself in any part of this story, hit that subscribe button. Sometimes the best way to avoid a mistake is to hear about someone else's first. Take care of yourselves out there. And remember, if it feels too good to be true, it probably is.